Most people move to lakefront communities for peace. I moved here for control. Lakeside Bluffs was polished and planned. A grid of luxury homes, hugging the crescent of Lake Mirabel. A perfect view, a quiet dock, and my boat, the Marion, rocking gently in the early morning fog. It was the last gift from my father before he passed. An elegant Grady white, sleek, silent, and serene. I'd moored it at the edge of my property, same place it had always been, long before the HOA sprouted up like weeds. But control? That illusion shattered one Tuesday morning. I stepped outside with my coffee and nearly dropped the mug. A neon orange violation notice clung to the bow of the Marion like a leash. Unauthorized watercraft on HOA lakefront. Immediate removal required. Daily fines to follow. At first I thought it was a prank, maybe a new neighbor trying to be funny. But the tag was laminated. Official looking. Stamped with the HOA seal. Lakeside Bluffs Property Council. President, Linda Winthrop. Linda Winthrop. That name alone made me exhale hard through my nose. I'd met her once, briefly, at the winter welcome mixer. Platinum blonde helmet hair, icy blue eyes, and the smile of someone who thinks they were born to lead. She introduced herself by listing the awards she'd won for community enhancement. I'd introduced myself as a quiet retiree who kept on to himself. Apparently that wasn't good enough. I dialed the number on the notice, and to no surprise, Linda herself answered. Lakeside Bluffs, HOA, this is Linda. Hi, this is Grayson Hale, Lot 17. I just got a violation notice on my boat. Oh yes, she said without pause. We've been meaning to speak with you. The vessel violates aesthetic standards and usage regulations. It must be removed immediately. I kept my voice calm. There must be a misunderstanding. That boat's on my private dock. Has been for years. Exactly, she replied. Private docks are no longer permitted without board approval. As of last quarter's amendment, all shoreline structures and vessels fall under HOA jurisdiction. I blinked. You're claiming the HOA controls my dock. And the lake? That's correct. Lake Mirabel is considered a shared visual asset. Any structures or crafts disrupting the scenic integrity are subject to review. I let the silence stretch. Then, Linda, I own Lake Mirabel. This time she paused. Pardon, the lake. My grandfather bought the land it sits on in 63. It's deeded, mapped, and filed with the county. The water, the shore, everything within the boundary line. It's private property. Mine. Her laugh was sharp and thin. Mr. Hale, no one owns a lake. That's absurd. It belongs to the community now. I started to respond, but she cut me off. If you refuse to comply, we'll begin fining and take further action. Have a good day. Click. I stood there, phone still in hand, feeling something tighten in my chest. Not anger exactly, more like the low thrum of an engine, idling. Controlled, calculated. I spent the rest of the morning digging through my files. Found the deeds, maps, and even a black and white photo of my grandfather shaking hands with the county clerk the day he finalized the purchase. The lake wasn't public, wasn't leased, and it sure as hell wasn't part of any HOA. But I didn't march over to her office. Not yet. Instead, I took a long walk around the lake trail, a paved loop Linda's committee had installed last spring. As I walked, I noticed something. Paddleboards, inflatable docks, floating coolers, kids cannonballing from neighbors' decks, laughter, speakers, even someone flying a drone across the water. So it wasn't boats that were the problem. It was me, the outsider, the holdout who didn't sign his dock over to their little regime. As I passed one house, I caught Linda herself. on her balcony, pointing at something on a clipboard, while a group of HOA volunteers nodded like disciples. She didn't see me. I didn't wave. I went home, sat on the dock, and ran my hand over the Marion's polished railing. They didn't know who they were messing with. I wasn't just a man with a boat. I was the man who owned the lake beneath it. And if Linda Winthrop wanted a power struggle, she just kicked off a war she wasn't ready to fight. 3 days later, I received the fine. Not a warning this time, an official violation packet, hand-delivered in a thick white envelope by an HOA volunteer in a Lakeside Bluffs polo. Inside, a typed letter stating I owed $200 in cumulative fines for continued defiance of community standards, a schedule of future penalties, and, laughably, a QR code to explore alternative boat storage options off-site. They were escalating. I'd spent those days gathering paperwork, verifying every inch of legal documentation tied to Lake Mirabel, the waterline, the submerged land rights, even the mineral rights below. My grandfather had covered all his bases, and now those bases were mine. I didn't respond to the letter. Instead, I requested to speak at the next HOA meeting. Linda approved my attendance, but made it clear in her email that I was limited to 5 minutes of non-disruptive commentary during the homeowner concerns portion. I smiled at that. The meeting was held on a Thursday night in the clubhouse, an overly air-conditioned hall decorated with pastel art prints and laminated safety posters. I arrived early and took a seat in the back corner. Neighbors trickled in, most of them older couples or middle-aged professionals in designer athleisure, nodding politely, eyes flicking toward me with idle curiosity. Then Linda walked in. She wore a cream blazer, HOA name tag, shining like a badge of office. She didn't glance my way, just strutted to the front, adjusted the mic, and opened the meeting like a seasoned politician. Let's begin with agenda items 1 through 4. Trash bin regulations, fence height clarifications, and a motion to repaint the tennis court. Divider lines. It took 28 minutes to get to homeowner concerns. Linda nodded in my direction. Mr. Hale, you have 5 minutes. I stood slowly and walked to the podium, carrying a single manila folder. My name is Grayson Hale. I own lot 17, and I'm here today to correct a serious misunderstanding. I opened the folder and held up a high-resolution satellite image. This is Lake Mirabel. Its boundaries, according to county records, fall entirely within parcel 304B, a private landholding registered to me. My grandfather purchased the lake, its shoreline, and all submerged property rights in 1963. A few murmurs rippled through the room. I continued. Here's the deed. Here's the county plat map. Here's a letter from the district water office, confirming the lake is not under municipal, state, or HOA jurisdiction. Linda interrupted, her voice tight. Mr. Hale, your time is almost up. I ignored her. You sent me a notice to remove my boat. You claimed the lake was under your authority. You've issued fines, threatened action, and distributed misinformation. Now I looked her dead in the eyes. Let me be clear. The lake is mine. Your authority ends where the water begins. Gasps. One man whispered something to his wife, who suddenly looked very concerned. Linda tried to recover. The HOA has the right to regulate visual consistency and shared resources, not when that resource is privately owned. This isn't about visual consistency. It's about control and an overreach of power. I pulled out a final document. This is a cease and desist letter, drafted by my attorney. If you pursue any further action against me, or if another fine appears in my mailbox, we'll move forward with legal remedies. including a full review of the HOA's jurisdictional boundaries. I stepped back. The room had gone quiet. Linda's smile was strained now. "Thank you, Mr. Hale. We will take that under advisement." I sat down. Several neighbors gave me small, respectful nods. Even the man in the tennis windbreaker, who'd always seemed to side with the HOA, mouthed the word "damn." Linda tried to return to the agenda, but the mood had shifted. The illusion had cracked. For the first time, her voice trembled. By the time the meeting adjourned, word had spread. The lake belonged to someone, me, and Linda had been caught bluffing. But I knew her type. She wouldn't let this go, not after being publicly challenged. She'd escalate, try to save face, which meant I needed to be ready, because if she wanted to turn this into a power play, I'd make sure it ended in checkmate. The next week, Linda struck back. It started with a noise complaint. I received an email from the HOA citing an unauthorized disturbance originating from Lot 17, specifically related to the operation of motorized equipment near the waterline after 8 p.m. The equipment in question, my electric trolling motor, humming as I cast a line from the Marion at dusk. I didn't respond. 2 days later, a landscaping crew showed up at the edge of my property. They claimed they were conducting a shoreline erosion audit on behalf of the HOA. When I asked for a permit or documentation, they stammered, shrugged, and said Linda had instructed them to just take some pictures. I sent them packing. An hour later, I emailed Linda a copy of the county map with a highlighted boundary line and a single line of text. "Set foot on my property again without permission, and the sheriff will be involved." Her reply came 6 minutes later. "We were merely performing standard environmental oversight, which you'd know if you attended our monthly workshops. The community expects cooperation." That was her angle now, weaponizing policy and bureaucracy to bleed me with paper cuts. But I had a scalpel of my own. That weekend, I hosted a quiet barbecue on my dock. Just me, a few old friends from town, and a Bluetooth speaker playing soft jazz. We drank iced tea, grilled steaks, and laughed as kids skipped stones across the lake. I knew full well that HOA had outlawed open flames on non-HOA approved platforms. I also knew that my dock wasn't subject to their rules. Sure enough, by Monday morning I had another notice. This one was written in bolder font, stamped "Second Warning," and included a threat to suspend my community amenities privileges. I laughed out loud at that one. What amenities? The tennis court I never used, the community garden I wasn't allowed to plant in, because I didn't attend the soil policy orientation. No, what I had couldn't be suspended. Because while they were busy clinging to clubhouse rulebooks, I was sitting on the most powerful resource the neighborhood had, the lake. And that's when the idea came, not revenge. Reckoning? I started making calls, not to lawyers, but to locals, paddleboard instructors, kayak rental operators, a couple who ran a floating yoga class out of the next town over. "Ever wanted exclusive access to a private lake?" I asked. No permits, no red tape, just clean water, gentle wake, and full landowner permission. I set up agreements, insurance waivers, and simple usage contracts. The next weekend, paddleboards dotted the shoreline, cheerful voices echoing across the water as the first yoga session floated into view. Linda nearly swallowed her tongue. She stormed down to my dock mid-morning, wearing oversized sunglasses and fury like perfume. "You're running commercial activity on HOA property," she barked, phone in hand, recording everything. "No," I said, smiling. "I'm running it on my property. My dock, my lake." She pointed toward the yoga instructor. leading a stretch. That's a liability. What if someone gets hurt? Already signed waivers. I replied. Insured too. See that guy over there? A man in cargo shorts and a navy windbreaker waved from the bank. Off-duty sheriff's deputy. Hired him to ensure everything stays safe and legal. Linda's mouth opened, then closed. You're exploiting a loophole, she snapped. No, Linda. I'm using my land, something you forgot I could do. You're creating a disturbance. Residents will complain. They're welcome to, I said, voice cool. But I think they'll enjoy having free paddleboard rentals every Saturday. It's part of my new Lake Access Community Program. Just my way of being neighborly. And it worked. People came. Not in mobs, but in steady, curious waves. A mother and daughter paddled out and waved. A retired couple floated by and rented kayaks. One teenager even asked if he could film drone footage for his YouTube channel. Everywhere Linda turned, people were smiling, and none of them were under her control. I watched her leave that day, shoulders tense, heels clicking furiously against the dock planks. The storm was coming now, and I was done playing defense. Linda went silent for 2 days. Then, like a wounded animal, making one last lunge, she launched a full-scale blitz. I woke up Monday morning to a folded notice duct taped to my gate. Effective immediately. Lot 17 is in violation of Articles 4B, 6A, and 9F of the Lakeside Bluffs Charter. As such, all community privileges are revoked pending review. I didn't laugh this time, because this wasn't about privileges. It was about power, and Linda was trying to make an example out of me. I grabbed my phone, scrolled to a folder I'd been building for weeks, scanned letters, time-stamped videos, legal documents, HOA emails, even footage from a GoPro I'd mounted on the dock's awning. Everything neatly tagged and indexed. By noon, it was all in a Dropbox folder, sent to 3 key people. My attorney, a local reporter who covered municipal overreach, and the County Land Use Commission. Then I posted a public update on the Lakeside Bluffs Community Forum. To my neighbors, many of you have asked about the recent activity on the lake. As the legal owner of Lake Mirabel and its surrounding shoreline, I've worked hard to keep our community peaceful and welcoming. However, certain HOA actions have crossed legal boundaries. All documentation has been shared with relevant authorities. In the meantime, paddleboard Saturdays will continue as scheduled, free for all residents. Just bring sunscreen. It took all of 10 minutes for the post to blow up. Within hours, the thread had over 200 comments. Some supportive, some shocked, many furious. At Linda. Turns out the neighborhood had been quietly collecting grievances against her for years. Overzealous, fines, arbitrary rules, unannounced inspections. One neighbor shared how she was fined $300 for a hummingbird feeder visible from the street. Another claimed Linda once threatened to sue a teenager for rollerblading on a community path too aggressively. The tide had turned. By Thursday, I received an unexpected invitation. Emergency HOA board meeting. Attendance requested. I wore jeans, boots, and a polo. No need to dress up for a collapsing empire. The clubhouse was packed. For the first time, residents who usually ignored these meetings had shown up, curious and simmering. Some nodded to me as I passed. A few even clapped. Linda stood at the front, stiff-backed and red-cheeked. Her usual authority had slipped. Her voice was less confident. Her gaze darted from corner to corner like a trapped animal. The meeting opened with a motion to reconsider. and clarified jurisdictional boundaries regarding lakefront properties. One board member, a soft-spoken man named Raoul, spoke next. We've reviewed Mr. Hale's documentation. It's thorough. The lake, dock, and associated shoreline are legally and exclusively his. The HOA charter has no standing jurisdiction over any of it. Linda tried to interrupt. Raoul held up a hand. Linda, please. We're not finished. He turned to me. Mr. Hale, on behalf of the board, we'd like to formally rescind all fines, notices, and previous disciplinary action taken against you. We also recognize your right to use and manage your property, including Lake Mirabelle, without interference. A wave of applause rose in the room. This time, more than a few people stood. I nodded once, sharply. Then I looked at Linda. I trust the board will ensure this doesn't happen again, I said. Because if it does, I won't just respond. I'll own the narrative. Her eyes burned, but she said nothing. And that silence said everything. She knew it was over. The meeting adjourned, not with one of her usual smug speeches, but with Raoul gently thanking everyone and urging a more cooperative spirit moving forward. Afterward, several residents approached me, some asking about paddleboard schedules, others just offering thanks. One older man, who'd lived here 20 years, shook my hand firmly and said, "About damn time someone stood up to her." That night, I stood on my dock, watching the sun settle over the still lake. A heron glided across the water, its wings carving quiet into the golden sky. No clipboard, no threat, just peace. I took a deep breath and smiled. I hadn't just won a fight, I'd reclaimed the lake, and in doing so, reminded everyone, sometimes the quietest waters run the deepest power.